In the spring of 1940, as Nazi Germany's war machine roared across Europe, a chilling disregard for American might permeated the highest echelons of the Third Reich. On May 28, in Berlin, Reich Marshal Hermann Göring, a man whose arrogance rivaled his girth, casually dismissed an intelligence report. Its contents? President Roosevelt's audacious request to Congress for an unprecedented surge in American aircraft production, an astonishing 50,000 planes annually. The Americans are desperate if they believe such propaganda will frighten us, Göring sneered to his inner circle. They know nothing of war production. Let them try to convert their automobile factories. They will learn that building warplanes requires more than assembly lines. But Göring's sneers were tragically misplaced. Far across the Atlantic, in the heart of industrial Detroit, a quiet revolution was already brewing, spearheaded by a Danish immigrant named William Knudsen. This former General Motors president, now working for a symbolic $1 a year as Roosevelt's chief of production, was charting a course for the most ambitious industrial transformation ever conceived. Within an astonishing 4 years, American factories would not just meet Göring's scoffed-at target of 50,000 aircraft. They would nearly double it, churning out almost 100,000 planes annually, all while simultaneously fueling 2 distant war theaters across vast oceans. The seismic proclamation that first ignited German contempt had come on May 16, 1940, even as German panzers tore through France. Standing before a skeptical Congress, Franklin Roosevelt boldly declared, "I should like to see this nation geared up to the ability to turn out at least 50,000 planes a year." The reaction, even among America's allies, was widespread disbelief. After all, in 1939, the U.S. had managed to produce a mere 3,611 military aircraft. The Army Air Corps possessed only 1,700 combat planes, many already relics of an earlier era. Yet Roosevelt was demanding a breathtaking 14-fold increase in production. The mastermind behind this impending miracle was William Knudsen. When the question arose of who could possibly achieve such an impossible feat, Presidential Advisor Bernard Baruch's answer was unwavering and thrice repeated. First, Bill Knudsen. Second, Bill Knudsen. Third, Bill Knudsen. Knudsen, having forsaken a princely $300,000 salary to serve his adopted nation, brought with him the revolutionary principles of automotive mass production, poised to inject them directly into aircraft manufacturing. The gears of this monumental transformation began to turn immediately. By December 1941, American factories were already delivering 2,000 military aircraft each month, a staggering 20-fold increase from just 2 years prior. The Ford Motor Company unveiled its colossal bomber plant at Willow Run, Michigan. Boeing's Seattle facilities rapidly expanded, and Douglas Aircraft swelled its ranks with thousands of new workers. The sleeping arsenal of democracy was at last stirring. The Nazi leadership's profound misjudgment of American capabilities stemmed from a toxic blend of racial prejudice and sheer willful blindness. General Friedrich von Bottcher, Germany's military attaché in Washington from 1933 to 1941, diligently dispatched accurate reports detailing the burgeoning American industrial mobilization. His December 1940 cable sounded a dire warning. American war production will reach unimaginable heights. Yet back in Berlin, these prescient warnings were casually dismissed as the defeatist exaggeration of a man too long away from the true spirit of the Reich. When Bottcher personally met Hitler in February 1939 to discuss America's potential, the Führer, rather than absorbing vital intelligence, launched into a furious tirade about American racial degeneracy. Hitler infamously declared Americans half Judaized, half Negrified, and utterly incapable of sustained warfare. This crippling ideological blindness would ultimately prove fatal.
This virulent prejudice wasn't confined to the top. It permeated every level of the Nazi command. Luftwaffe intelligence, for instance, scorned reports of women entering aircraft factories, interpreting them as desperate signs of American weakness. They simply could not fathom that democratic mobilization might surpass the rigid directives of a totalitarian state. when dispatches arrived detailing American factories running 3 shifts, German analysts simply assumed gross embellishment. The Nazi worldview, tragically rigid, could not accommodate the fluid, dynamic reality of America's industrial awakening. Ford's Willow Run plant, a monument to American ambition, epitomized this awakening. Breaking ground on farmland on April 18, 1941, it rapidly became the world's largest factory under a single roof, sprawling across 3.5 million square feet with an assembly line stretching an incredible mile. Charles Sorensen, Ford's visionary production chief, promised to deliver 1 B-24 Liberator bomber every hour, a feat unheard of when other factories struggled to build one per day. Initial results, however, were nothing short of catastrophic. The first bomber, completed in September 1942, needed a complete rebuild. Quality control failures soared to 50%. By February 1943, Willow Run was only producing 56 bombers monthly, a stark contrast to the hundreds initially promised. Critics, with a wry cynicism, nicknamed it "Will It Run?" But Ford engineers, undaunted, pressed on. They meticulously broke down the B-24's staggering 488,193 parts into manageable subassemblies. They pioneered hydraulic riveting tools, introduced prefabricated wiring harnesses, and perfected moving assembly lines. In 1943 alone, they deftly incorporated 578 design changes without once halting production. By September 1943, monthly output had climbed to 148 bombers. By December, it reached 365. The true breakthrough arrived in April 1944. Willow Run produced an astounding 428 B-24s, delivering one every 63 minutes around the clock. This single American factory was now outproducing the entire German aviation industry. The grim reality of American production superiority first dawned on German pilots during the Tunisia campaign. Major Johannes Steinhoff, commanding JG-77, observed in December 1942, "The American pilots are no longer amateurs. Most disturbing, there are more of them every day." This unsettling revelation intensified throughout 1943. January 27th marked the first American raid on Germany itself, 64 bombers striking Wilhelmshaven. By October, during the infamous Black Thursday at Schweinfurt, the Americans could afford to lose 60 B-17s and replace them within 2 weeks. The terrifying mathematics had become utterly inescapable. During the momentous Big Week from February 20th to 25th, 1944, the 8th and 15th Air Forces unleashed 3,500 bomber sorties against German aircraft production targets. The Luftwaffe suffered grievous losses, between 262 and 355 fighters, but far more critically, approximately 100 irreplaceable veteran pilots. General Adolf Galland reported to Göring that Germany was losing 1,200 fighters monthly while only producing 1,000. In stark contrast, America was producing 2,500 fighters monthly while losing a mere 400. Major Heinz Baer, one of Germany's most celebrated aces with 220 victories, recounted a January 1944 mission over Brunswick with chilling clarity. The bomber stream stretched from horizon to horizon, at least 700 flying fortresses and liberators. We were 8 fighters against hundreds. It was hopeless.
By 1944, American aircraft production had swollen to truly staggering proportions. That year alone, factories rolled out 96,270 aircraft, including 16,048 four-engine bombers, 35,743 fighters, and 22,591 multi-engine aircraft. This single year's output surpassed Germany's entire wartime production of approximately 94,677 aircraft. The disparity wasn't just in raw numbers. Each American bomber bristled with 13 50-caliber machine guns, backed by thousands of rounds of ammunition, while German fighters increasingly scrambled with partial loads. American bombers boasted powered turrets, advanced bomb sights, and sophisticated navigation equipment. German fighters often lacked even functioning radios. Boeing's Seattle Plant 2 was churning out 16 B-17s daily by May 1944. Douglas Aircraft, a modest operation with just 68 employees in 1936, had mushroomed to 167,000 workers across 9 sprawling facilities. North American Aviation was pumping out 500 P-51 Mustangs monthly, and Lockheed achieved the astonishing feat of producing 1 P-38 Lightning every 90 minutes, even while integrating 2,127 combat-driven modifications. Supporting industries mirrored this breathtaking pace. General Motors produced an incredible 57,658 aircraft engines under license. Packard built 55,523 Rolls-Royce Merlins. Alcoa's aluminum output soared by 600%, and Dow Chemical's magnesium production exploded from 6 million annually to a colossal 333 million. The transformation of America's workforce utterly shattered Nazi preconceptions. Women, who constituted less than 1% of aircraft workers in 1941, made up a remarkable 65% by 1943. A staggering 310,000 women strong in the aircraft industry. At Douglas Long Beach, 22,385 of 41,625 employees were women. Rose Will Monroe, the iconic Rosie the Riveter, expertly drove 3,000 rivets per shift at Willow Run with an astounding 99.5% accuracy. Women inspectors at Douglas dramatically reduced defect rates from 3.2% to a mere 0.3%. Ford, in an unexpected twist, redesigned tools for smaller hands, inadvertently improving overall efficiency. Lighter pneumatic tools reduced fatigue, and better-positioned workstations slashed injuries. German intelligence, ever blind to democratic strengths, interpreted female employment as a desperate measure, a captured Luftwaffe report dismissing these workers as temporary and predicting a quality collapse. Instead, precision improved. Women excelled at intricate work, wiring, instruments, inspection. Their seamless integration into the workforce was a testament to democratic strength, not weakness. As American production skyrocketed, Germany retreated into a perilous world of fantasy. In February 1944, Göring authorized the Jaeger program, scattering production into 729 underground facilities cruelly dependent on slave labor. The Metalwork complex, a hellish underground factory, condemned 60,000 prisoners to horrific conditions, with 20,000 dying. These subterranean factories produced more defects than aircraft. Slave laborers, driven by desperation and defiance, sabotaged components. The dispersal of facilities led to crippling transportation delays, and quality control utterly collapsed. The entire Metalwork complex produced fewer engines monthly than Ford's single Chicago plant. Meanwhile, American innovation only accelerated. Boeing developed modular B-29 construction, spreading production across 4 facilities with completely interchangeable parts. The pressurized B-29, a technological marvel, costing $65,000 each, incorporated advancements Germany couldn't even match in its prototypes. By early 1945, America was producing 100 B-29s monthly. June 6, 1944, D-Day, stands as the ultimate testament to American production. The invasion armada unleashed 115,990 Allied aircraft against a paltry 319 German sorties, a staggering 36-to-1 aerial superiority. This wasn't merely a tactical advantage, it was industrial annihilation.
During his trial at Nuremberg, prosecutors confronted Göring with an avalanche of evidence demonstrating American production dominance. Charts starkly illustrated America producing more aircraft monthly by 1944 than Germany managed annually. Films of Willow Run's bustling assembly lines played, a visual indictment, as prosecutors meticulously listed the German cities systematically reduced to rubble by bombers flowing from that single factory. Göring's March 14, 1946 testimony revealed his tormented struggle to grasp the sheer scale. "I believed the economic and technical potential of the United States to be unusually great, particularly the Air Force. But I never imagined they could increase aircraft production 100-fold in 4 years. Such growth seemed physically impossible." Prison psychologist G.M. Gilbert documented Göring's unsettling obsession with production statistics. He endlessly calculated ratios, comparing individual American factories to Germany's entire industrial output. Willow Run in particular seemed to haunt him. He repeatedly called it that damned factory that broke our backs. When confronted with the fact that America had produced 812,615 aircraft engines compared to Germany's 241,675, Göring simply stared at the figures in stunned silence. The mathematical reality of defeat was, finally, undeniable. The scope of this transformation remains staggering even today. From a mere 3,611 military aircraft in 1940, America's output surged to an incredible 295,959 by war's end. 97,810 bombers, 99,465 fighters, and 98,684 other types. This wasn't merely quantity, it represented systemic superiority in every conceivable aspect of production. At its peak, 2 million Americans, a workforce of unprecedented diversity, toiled in aircraft production. Women, African Americans, Mexican Americans, Native Americans, disabled workers, teenagers, and elderly citizens, all united in a common cause. This democratic mobilization achieved what totalitarian command could not: voluntary cooperation that surpassed forced labor's output by every measure. The workforce that entered factories in 1941, knowing nothing of aircraft construction, emerged in 1945 as the world's most skilled aviation workers. They didn't just build planes, they revolutionized manufacturing itself. Statistical quality control, born from bomber production, became a global industrial standard. Automation principles, pioneered at Willow Run, transformed manufacturing worldwide. The engineers who designed the bomber assembly lines would go on to design the mighty Saturn V rocket. The women who riveted B-24s would raise children who walked on the moon. The production miracle didn't just win a war, it launched the American century. The financial dimensions defied all economic orthodoxy. Aircraft production alone consumed $45 billion in 1940s dollars, a sum equivalent to a colossal $800 billion today. The B-29 program in isolation cost more than the entire Manhattan Project. Yet far from bankrupting America, this wartime production ignited unprecedented prosperity. Unemployment, the scourge of the Depression, vanished completely. Personal income doubled between 1940 and 1945. War bond sales, purchased by the workers themselves, financed much of this colossal expansion. Willow Run employees alone bought $45 million in bonds, essentially funding their own factories' operations. Germany, conversely, dedicated 40% of its entire industrial capacity to aircraft production by 1944, yet produced less than half of America's output.
Its increasing reliance on slave labor proved catastrophically counterproductive. Sabotage was rampant, quality utterly collapsed, and productivity per German worker actually declined after 1943, while American productivity surged by an astounding 300%. The robust production infrastructure, built for war, seamlessly transitioned into the bedrock of post-war prosperity. Aluminum smelters, erected for bombers, yielded materials for sprawling suburban housing. Chemical plants that once brewed aviation fuel now created plastics for a booming consumer goods market. Machine tool factories, which had equipped aircraft plants, now tooled up American industry for global dominance. Beyond raw output lay organizational brilliance. The War Production Board flawlessly coordinated 184,000 companies. IBM punch card machines meticulously tracked millions of components across thousands of suppliers. MIT's Radiation Laboratory, a hive of 4,000 scientists, developed sophisticated navigation systems that granted American bombers all-weather capability. When combat revealed the B-17's vulnerability to frontal attacks, Boeing swiftly integrated chin turrets within 60 days. When Pacific operations demanded extended range, consolidated modified B-24s without once interrupting production. German modifications took agonizing months or even years. American improvements took mere weeks. This unparalleled adaptability proved as decisive as the sheer volume of production. American aircraft continuously evolved, shaped by global combat experience. Information flowed from Pacific battlefields to Atlantic production lines within days. Pilots' observations reached engineers immediately. Engineers' solutions reached assembly lines within days. And critically, assembly line workers' suggestions flowed directly to designers. This democratic exchange of information proved fundamentally superior to Germany's rigid, hierarchical command structure. German aircraft, often produced in isolated underground facilities by slave labor, remained static in design, while American designs improved weekly. The relentless feedback loop between combat and production achieved an unprecedented level of efficiency. On October 15, 1946, just hours before his scheduled execution, Hermann Göring penned his final letter. In it, he delivered his most complete and chilling admission of the production war's profound significance. The Americans won through industrial power, not military prowess. We were not defeated by better soldiers, but by better factories. The nation we dismissed as capable only of building consumer goods buried the Wehrmacht under aluminum and steel. His last recorded statement to Gilbert was equally revealing. We declared war on an industrial giant while it slept. When it awoke, we were doomed. They didn't just outproduce us, they revolutionized production itself. Every aspect of their system proved superior to ours. Göring tragically took his own life that night, but his final testimony stands as history's stark verdict on the production war. The Reich Marshal, who had so contemptuously dismissed American capabilities, died knowing that a single American factory had, in its lifetime, exceeded the entire production of his beloved Air Force. Military historians universally regard the American production achievement as the decisive factor in Allied victory. Without the overwhelming material superiority it provided, D-Day would have been an impossibility, the bombing campaign utterly unsustainable, and the Pacific War unwinnable. Richard Overy, a leading historian of the Air War, concluded with chilling precision. The outcome was determined not by fighting spirit or tactical brilliance, but by the weight of material. The Allies triumphed because they literally buried their enemies under an avalanche of production.
The numbers undeniably affirm this assessment. By 1944, America alone was producing more military aircraft than the rest of the world combined, both Axis and Allied powers. This was not merely incremental superiority. It was an order of magnitude dominance. Germany faced not just defeat, but utter obliteration. Yet the significance of this production miracle transcended mere military victory. It was a profound vindication of democracy's inherent superiority over dictatorship, of freedom's undeniable advantage over tyranny, and of voluntary cooperation's formidable strength over forced obedience. The workers who achieved this transformation were not slaves or conscripts, but free citizens, united by a common, righteous purpose. Hermann Göring's dismissal of American production capacity remains history's most catastrophic miscalculation. His contempt for democratic industrial potential cost Germany the war and millions of lives. His failure to recognize American capabilities sealed the Third Reich's fate long before the first bomber ever darkened German skies. The breathtaking transformation from 3,000 to 100,000 aircraft annually demonstrated that free societies, when confronted with existential threats, possessed an almost unlimited capacity to achieve the impossible. American workers didn't just meet Roosevelt's impossible goal, they doubled it. They didn't just match German production, they exceeded it fivefold, all while simultaneously waging war in the Pacific. Today's leaders would be wise to heed Göring's monumental error. To dismiss democratic nations as weak because they cherish peace, or to underestimate the productive capacity of free people because they prefer prosperity to conquest, is to invite catastrophic miscalculation. America in 1940 may have appeared utterly unprepared for war, but by 1944 it had transformed into an unstoppable industrial colossus. The arsenal of democracy proved that production lines could be as decisive as front lines, that assembly workers could be as crucial as soldiers, and that industrial mobilization could determine victory as surely as military strategy. Göring learned this bitter lesson far too late, at the horrific cost of his nation's destruction. From his contemptuous reaction to Roosevelt's announcement in May 1940, to his execution at Nuremberg in October 1946, Hermann Göring's tragic journey mirrored the devastating arc of Nazi Germany's destruction. His scorn for American production became the chilling epitaph for the Third Reich, a regime that fatally confused ideology with capability, that mistook tyranny for strength, and that foolishly believed racial mythology could overcome the cold, hard mathematics of industrial power. The Reich Marshal, who once ridiculed American aircraft production, died knowing that American factories had produced more planes in 1944 alone than Germany managed throughout the entire war. His mockery of democratic industrial capacity became history's most expensive joke, paid for in the brutal currency of total defeat. America produced 295,959 military aircraft. Germany produced 94,677. But the true victory lay not merely in these numbers, but in the profound method. It proved that free workers could outproduce slaves, that democratic cooperation could exceed totalitarian command, and that a nation forged from immigrants and diverse citizens could unite to achieve the impossible. The B-24 bombers rolling off Willow Run's assembly line every 63 minutes weren't just aircraft, they were democracy's thunderous answer to tyranny. Each rivet driven by a woman who months earlier had been a housewife. Each engine built by a teenager who had left high school to serve. Each wing assembled by workers who had fled poverty and discrimination. All of them proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that free peoples, when united in a righteous cause, could bury tyranny under an unstoppable avalanche of production. Hermann Göring scoffed at the very idea of America producing 50,000 planes annually. America responded by producing twice that many, irrevocably transforming global history in the process. His laughter now echoes through history as the chilling sound of catastrophic miscalculation, the fatal dismissal of democracy's arsenal by a man who understood neither democracy nor true production. In the end, both conspired to bury him and everything he represented
beneath 300,000 aircraft that turned his contempt into history's most complete defeat.